The autumn sun cast long shadows across the Millfield County livestock auction in rural Texas, where the familiar sounds of cattle lowing and auctioneers calling filled the crisp October air. Dust motes danced in the shafts of light that streamed through the weathered barn windows, illuminating a scene that had played out countless times over the past 50 years in this corner of East Texas. 23-year-old Danny Martinez stood at the back of the crowded bleachers, his work-worn hands gripping a thermos of coffee that had long since gone cold. At just over 5'8", with dark hair and serious brown eyes, Danny looked every bit the struggling young rancher he was. His family's 150-acre spread had been hemorrhaging money for the past 3 years, ever since a drought followed by flooding had decimated their breeding program and left them with a herd too small to be profitable. The auctioneer's voice boomed across the barn. Lot 23 coming up next. This is a 2-year-old Angus bull, registered stock from the Henderson Ranch. Let's start the bidding at $1,500. Danny watched as prime breeding stock sold for prices that might as well have been millions for all the good they did him. His meager savings of $800, scraped together from odd jobs and the sale of his grandfather's old tractor, wouldn't even cover the starting bid on most of the quality animals being offered. That's when Lot 47 entered the ring, and the atmosphere in the barn shifted noticeably. The bull that shuffled into the sale pen bore little resemblance to the magnificent specimens that had preceded him. Where the other bulls had moved with confident power, this one walked with his head low, his steps uncertain. His black coat was dull and patchy, and at barely 200 pounds, he looked severely underweight for a 2-year-old Angus. One of his horns was slightly crooked, and there was a noticeable limp in his left hind leg that made him favor his right side when he walked. Lot 47, the auctioneer announced with considerably less enthusiasm than he had shown for the previous animals. 2-year-old Angus bull from the Patterson place. He's had some health challenges, but the paperwork shows he's clean and ready for breeding. A ripple of laughter passed through the crowd. Several experienced ranchers shook their heads and turned away, clearly uninterested in what they saw as defective merchandise. Danny heard snippets of conversation from the seats around him. Poor thing looks half dead. What's Patterson thinking, bringing trash like that to auction? Nobody's gonna bid on that sorry excuse for a bull. The mockery stung Danny more than it should have. He understood the harsh economics of ranching. Weak animals were a liability that few could afford. But something about the bull's demeanor touched him. The animal wasn't aggressive or wild like some of the others had been. Instead, he seemed almost resigned, as if he had accepted that he was unwanted and unloved. Let's start the bidding at $500, the auctioneer called out, his voice lacking conviction. Silence filled the barn. Not a single hand went up. 400? 300? Still nothing. Danny could see the embarrassment on the auctioneer's face as he struggled to find someone, anyone, willing to take a chance on the reject bull. $200, folks. That's practically giving him away. Finally, a gruff voice from the front row called out, $150, but only for slaughter weight. The words hit Danny like a physical blow. This bull, this living, breathing creature with his own personality and potential, was about to be sold for meat processing. The bidder, Joe Kruger, owned a small slaughterhouse operation and was known for buying up auction rejects for minimal prices. Danny's grandfather, Miguel Martinez, had taught him that every animal deserved a chance to show what it could become. Mijo, the old man used to say, sometimes the ones that look the weakest are just waiting for someone to believe in them. Before he could second-guess himself, Danny stood up and called out, 200! Every head in the barn turned to look at him. He could feel the weight of their stares, some amused, others pitying, a few openly hostile. Joe Kruger turned around with a scowl, clearly annoyed at having his easy purchase challenged. 250, Kruger countered, his voice carrying a warning that he didn't appreciate the competition. Danny's heart raced. $250 was already more than he could really afford, but something in the bull's eyes, a flicker of intelligence, perhaps even hope, made him dig deeper. 300, Danny said, his voice steadier than he felt. The barn fell silent again. Everyone waited to see if Kruger would continue bidding, but the slaughterhouse owner just waved his hand dismissively. Not worth it for processing, he muttered. Kid can have his pet. The gavel came down with a sharp crack. Sold to bidder 127 for $300. As Danny made his way down to the sale office to complete the paperwork, he became aware of the conversations swirling around him. The mockery was no longer directed at the bull alone. Now it included him. That Martinez kid just threw away $300 on a cripple. His family's already struggling, and now he's buying worthless animals. Give it 2 months, and that bull will be dead weight on their place. Danny signed the paperwork with hands that trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the enormity of what he had just committed to. $300 might not sound like much to some people, but it represented weeks of backbreaking work and careful saving. If this bull didn't work out, it would set his family's recovery back by months. But as he walked out to the loading pens to meet his new acquisition, Danny felt something he hadn't experienced in a long time: hope. The bull stood quietly in the holding pen, no longer surrounded by the superior animals that had made his defects so apparent. Up close, Danny could see past the poor condition and glimpse the potential that others had missed. "What are you going to call him?" asked Pete Morrison, one of the auction hands who had helped load dozens of animals that day. Danny studied the bull's face, noting the intelligence in his dark eyes and the way he stood a little straighter now that he was away from the judgment of the crowd. "Champion," he said without hesitation. "His name is Champion." Pete laughed, not unkindly but with obvious disbelief. "Champion? Son, I hate to break it to you, but that bull's about as far from championship material as they come." "We'll see," Danny replied quietly, but with a conviction that surprised even him. "We'll see." As the trailer carrying Champion pulled away from the auction yard, Danny couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just taken a dramatic turn. He had no idea how he was going to transform this reject bull into something special, but his grandfather's words echoed in his mind. Sometimes the ones that look the weakest are just waiting for someone to believe in them. The other ranchers at the auction had seen a worthless animal destined for slaughter. Danny saw potential waiting to be unleashed. Time would tell which perspective was correct, but as the Texas countryside rolled past the truck windows, Danny Martinez was committed to giving Champion every opportunity to prove the doubters wrong. The October morning mist hung low over the Martinez ranch as the livestock trailer pulled into the gravel driveway, carrying Danny's controversial purchase home for the first time. Champion stood quietly in the back of the trailer, his dark eyes taking in the modest but well-maintained property that would become his new home. Danny's mother, Elena Martinez, emerged from the white farmhouse with a cup of coffee in her hands and worry etched on her weathered face. At 52, she had the practical wisdom of someone who had spent 30 years helping her family navigate the ups and downs of ranch life, but she couldn't hide her concern about her son's impulsive decision. "Danny, mijo," she said in the gentle but firm tone that had guided him through childhood. "I know you have good intentions, but $300? "I know, Mama," Danny replied, lowering the trailer ramp with careful precision. "But look at him. Really look at him." As Champion stepped hesitantly onto the Texas soil, Elena did look, and despite her practical reservations, she had to admit there was something in the bull's demeanor that touched her heart. He wasn't aggressive or wild like so many auction animals could be. Instead, he seemed almost grateful to be anywhere that wasn't the chaotic environment of the sale barn. Danny's younger sister, Maria, bounded out of the house with the enthusiasm that only a 16-year-old could muster. "Oh my gosh, Danny, he's huge! And look at those eyes! He's like he's thinking about everything!" "He is thinking," Danny said, approaching Champion slowly and speaking in the same calm tones his grandfather had used with difficult animals. "Aren't you, boy? You're just trying to figure out if this place is safe." Champion's response was subtle but unmistakable. His ears, which had been pinned back during the trailer ride, relaxed slightly. His breathing slowed, and he took a tentative step toward Danny rather than away from him. The first challenge was getting Champion settled into his new environment. Danny had prepared the small pasture behind the barn, reinforcing the fencing and ensuring there was plenty of fresh water and good grass. But when he tried to lead Champion toward the gate, the bull balked, planting his feet and refusing to move. "He's scared," Elena observed, her maternal instincts extending even to this four-legged addition to their family. "Look at his body language. He's been hurt before." It took nearly an hour of patient coaxing, but eventually Champion followed Danny into the pasture. The moment the gate closed behind him, the bull's entire demeanor changed. For the first time since Danny had seen him at the auction, Champion raised his head high and surveyed his surroundings with something approaching confidence. "He knows he's home," Maria said softly, leaning against the fence rail to watch Champion explore his new territory. The real work began the next morning. Danny arrived at Champion's pasture before sunrise, carrying a bucket of grain mixed with supplements designed to help underweight cattle gain healthy mass. The bull approached cautiously, clearly hungry but still wary of human intentions. "Easy, boy," Danny murmured, setting the bucket down and stepping back to give Champion space. "Nobody's going to rush you here. We've got all the time in the world." It became a daily ritual. Every morning at dawn, Danny would arrive with feed, fresh water, and simple companionship. He would sit on an overturned bucket outside the fence, sometimes talking about his plans for the ranch, sometimes just enjoying the peaceful Texas sunrise in comfortable silence. Champion's response was gradual but unmistakable. Each day, he approached the feed bucket a little more quickly, stayed a little closer to Danny's presence, and showed a little more of the intelligence that Danny had glimpsed at the auction. The first real breakthrough came 3 weeks after Champion's arrival. Danny was examining a section of fence that had been damaged by the previous night's storm when he heard the distinctive sound of hoofbeats approaching behind him. He turned to find Champion standing just a few feet away, having crossed the entire pasture to investigate what his human was doing. "Well, hello there," Danny said, trying to keep the excitement out of his voice. "Decided to come supervise my work, did you?" Champion snorted softly and extended his massive head toward Danny's outstretched hand. The contact lasted only a few seconds, but it represented a level of trust that had taken weeks to build. Word of Danny's project had spread through the local farming community, and the reactions were predictably mixed. Some neighbors stopped by to offer encouragement and advice, while others made no effort to hide their skepticism. "That boy's wasting his time and his family's money," grumbled Bill Hawkins, a longtime rancher who had been raising cattle since before Danny was born. "You can't make a champion out of damaged goods no matter how much love you pour into it." But Dr. Amanda Rodriguez, the local veterinarian who had agreed to examine Champion at Danny's request, had a different perspective. After a thorough assessment of the bull's condition, she found reasons for cautious optimism. "His basic structure is actually quite good," she told Danny as they stood beside Champion's pasture. "The limp is from an old injury that healed improperly, but it's not getting worse. The malnutrition can be corrected with proper feeding and supplements, and his temperament—" She paused to watch Champion approach the fence with calm curiosity, rather than fear or aggression. "His temperament is exceptional. This is a naturally gentle animal who's been through some rough treatment. So you think he can improve?" "I think he can improve dramatically, but Danny, you need to understand what you're committing to. This is going to take months of consistent care, proper nutrition, and gradual conditioning. Even then, he may never be competitive with animals that have had optimal care from birth." Danny looked at Champion, who was peacefully grazing in the afternoon sun, his coat already showing the first signs of the luster that proper nutrition was beginning to restore. "I'm not asking him to compete with anyone else, Doc. I just want to give him the chance to become the best version of himself." Dr. Rodriguez smiled. "That's exactly the right attitude. Keep doing what you're doing, and let's see what happens." As autumn turned to winter, Champion's transformation became more apparent to everyone who saw him. His weight increased steadily, reaching a healthier 1,400 pounds by December. His coat, supplemented by Dr. Rodriguez's recommended vitamins and minerals, began to develop the deep, lustrous black that indicated optimal health in Angus cattle. But perhaps more importantly, Champion's personality began to emerge. He developed a routine of greeting Danny each morning with enthusiastic snorts and headbutts that were surprisingly gentle for such a large animal. He showed curiosity about everything that happened on the ranch, often positioning himself where he could observe the daily activities of the Martinez family. "He's becoming quite the character," Elena observed one evening as they watched Champion investigate a new salt lick that Danny had installed. "I never thought I'd say this about a bull, but he's actually charming." Maria had become Champion's unofficial second caretaker, arriving home from school each day to spend time brushing his coat and talking to him about her teenage drama. "He's a good listener," she told Danny with complete seriousness, "and he never judges me for being ridiculous about boys." By Christmas, Champion had become more than just a ranch animal. He was a member of the Martinez family. And while the skeptics in the community continued to doubt Danny's judgment, there were others who had begun to take notice of the remarkable transformation taking place on the modest ranch outside Millfield. "You know," said Jorge Santos, a respected cattle breeder who had stopped by to see Champion for himself, "I've been raising bulls for 25 years, and I've never seen an animal respond to care and attention the way this one has. You might actually have something special here, Danny." As the year drew to a close, Danny stood beside Champion's pasture watching the bull graze contentedly in the late afternoon sun. The rejected, malnourished animal he had purchased for $300 had become a healthy, confident bull who carried himself with increasing pride and dignity. The transformation was remarkable, but Danny knew it was just the beginning. Champion had proven that he could recover from neglect and abuse. Now came the real test. Could he prove that he belonged in the same class as the premium bulls who had dominated the auction market? If this incredible story of patience, dedication, and the power of believing in potential has inspired you, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more amazing true stories that show what's possible when we refuse to give up on those that others have written off. Spring arrived in East Texas with a burst of wildflowers and the promise of new beginnings. But for Danny Martinez, it also brought the most important decision of his young ranching career. The annual Lone Star Cattle Exhibition was just 2 months away, and the question of whether Champion was ready for such prestigious competition weighed heavily on his mind. Dr. Rodriguez had been monitoring Champion's progress through the winter, and her latest assessment left Danny both hopeful and nervous. "He's gained another 100 pounds of healthy muscle mass," she reported, running her experienced hands along Champion's now impressive frame. "His coat has achieved that deep black shine that judges love to see, and his overall conformation has improved remarkably." Champion now weighed a robust 1,550 pounds and carried himself with a confidence that would have been unimaginable 8 months earlier. His crooked horn had somehow become a distinguishing characteristic rather than a defect, and the slight limp that had once made him appear weak now seemed like nothing more than a unique gait that added character to his presence. "But Danny," Dr. Rodriguez continued, "you need to understand what you're up against. The Lone Star exhibition draws the finest cattle from across Texas and beyond. Champion has come a long way, but he'll be competing against animals that have had optimal breeding, nutrition, and training from birth." The local ranching community had been watching Danny's progress with Champion throughout the winter, and opinions remained sharply divided. At Miller's Feed Store, the unofficial gathering place for area cattle ranchers, the debate had become a weekly entertainment. "That Martinez boy's done good work with that reject bull," admitted Tom Miller, the store's owner and a respected voice in the community. "But good work don't make a champion. Breeding and bloodlines matter." Bill Hawkins remained skeptical. "I'll give the kid credit for persistence, but when that bull gets in the ring with real competition, all his fancy conditioning won't matter. You can't polish a turd, no matter how much elbow grease you use." However, Champion had gained an unexpected ally in Jorge Santos, whose opinion carried considerable weight in the regional cattle circuit. After several visits to observe Champion's development, Santos had become convinced that Danny might indeed have discovered something special. "Listen to me, Danny," Santos said during one of his visits. "I've been judging cattle competitions for 15 years, and I know what I'm seeing. This bull has presence now. When he moves across that pasture, he commands attention. That's not something you can teach. It's either there or it isn't." The decision to enter Champion in the Lone Star exhibition wasn't made lightly. The entry fee of $500 represented a significant investment for the Martinez family, and failure would provide ammunition for all the doubters who had questioned Danny's judgment from the beginning. Elena Martinez watched her son wrestle with the decision, recognizing the internal struggle between ambition and practical caution that had always defined the ranching life. "Mijo," she said one evening as they sat on the porch watching Champion graze in the fading light, "your grandfather used to say that the biggest risk is never taking any risk at all." Maria, now 17 and heading toward her senior year of high school, had become Champion's most vocal supporter. "Danny, you have to do it. Champion deserves the chance to show everyone what he really is. Besides, he's not the same bull you bought last year. He's our champion now." The decision was made on a warm April morning when Danny arrived at the pasture to find Champion standing at the fence, looking directly at him with eyes that seemed to hold a question. In that moment, Danny realized that the bull's transformation had been matched by his own growth in confidence and purpose. "All right, boy," he said, reaching through the fence to scratch Champion behind the ears. "Let's show them what we're made of." The weeks leading up to the competition became a whirlwind of preparation. Danny worked with Champion on lead training, teaching the bull to walk calmly beside him and stand properly for judging. The sessions revealed yet another aspect of Champion's remarkable intelligence. He seemed to understand that something important was approaching and responded to Danny's guidance with focused attention. Dr. Rodriguez helped develop a nutrition plan designed to optimize Champion's appearance for the competition. "We want him to look powerful but not overfed," she explained. Judges appreciate an animal that appears healthy and athletic rather than simply large. As news spread that Danny Martinez intended to enter his reject bull in the prestigious Lone Star exhibition, the reactions ranged from amusement to outright mockery. At the annual pre-competition meeting, where entries were officially registered, Danny found himself the center of unwanted attention. "Well, well," chuckled Brad Morrison, whose family owned one of the largest cattle operations in the region. "Look who thinks he's ready to play with the big boys. Hope you didn't spend too much money polishing up that auction reject." Danny kept his response simple and dignified. "I guess we'll find out soon enough." The mockery stung, but it also strengthened Danny's resolve. Champion had proven the doubters wrong once before, transforming from a neglected, unwanted animal into a healthy, confident bull. Now it was time to find out if that transformation was complete. On the evening before the competition, Danny stood in Champion's stall at the exhibition grounds, brushing the bull's coat to a brilliant shine while talking to him in the calm, reassuring tones that had become their private language over the past year. "Tomorrow's the big day, boy. I know you're ready. Oh, we've both come a long way from that auction barn, haven't we?" Champion turned his massive head toward Danny and made the soft rumbling sound that had become his way of responding to his human's voice. In his dark eyes, Danny saw not fear or uncertainty, but a quiet confidence that matched his own. The reject bull from Lot 47 was ready to show the world what belief, patience, and unconditional love could accomplish. Tomorrow would determine whether the transformation was complete or if it was just the beginning of an even more remarkable story. The morning of the Lone Star Cattle Exhibition dawned clear and bright, with the kind of perfect Texas weather that seemed designed for making dreams come true or breaking hearts completely. Danny Martinez stood outside Champion's stall at the exhibition grounds, his hands trembling slightly as he made final preparations for what would either vindicate a year of faith and hard work or confirm every skeptic's prediction. Champion seemed to sense the electricity in the air. The massive bull stood calmly but alertly in his stall, his 1,550-pound frame radiating a quiet confidence that had been completely absent from the frightened, broken animal Danny had purchased for $300 just 11 months earlier. The exhibition grounds buzzed with activity as some of the finest cattle in the Southwest were prepared for competition. In the stalls around them, Danny could see animals that represented generations of selective breeding and hundreds of thousands of dollars in investment. These were the genetic aristocrats of the cattle world, and Champion was about to be judged alongside them. "You still got time to pull out, Martinez," called Brad Morrison as he led his own prize bull past Champion's stall. "Save yourself the embarrassment of getting shown up in front of the whole state." Danny didn't respond, but Champion turned his massive head toward Morrison's voice and snorted once, not in fear or submission, but with what could only be described as disdain. The bull that had once cowered in auction pens now faced potential challengers with unwavering composure. Elena, Maria, and Dr. Rodriguez had driven down from Millfield to witness Champion's debut, joining a surprisingly large contingent of local ranchers who had come to see whether the miracle bull would live up to the growing legend surrounding his transformation. "Mijo," Elena whispered as she reached through the stall bars to touch Champion's neck. "Your abuelo would be so proud. Win or lose, you've already accomplished something incredible." The judging began with the junior division, where younger bulls competed for recognition and prize money. Danny watched intently, studying the judges' preferences and the subtle qualities that separated winners from also-rans. Judge Patricia Wells, a respected cattle expert from Oklahoma, seemed to favor animals that combined physical perfection with confident presence. exactly the qualities that Champion had been developing. When the call came for senior bull entries, Danny's heart began hammering in his chest. He clipped the lead rope to Champion's halter and opened the stall door, stepping into what felt like the most important moment of his life. "Easy, boy," he murmured as they walked toward the show ring. "Just like we practiced. Show them who you really are." Champion responded by straightening his shoulders and lifting his head high, his gait smooth and purposeful, despite the slight limp that had once been considered a crippling defect. As they entered the ring, a murmur went through the crowd, some mocking, some curious, but all attentive. The competition was fierce. Champion found himself standing next to Thunderbolt Supreme, a magnificent Angus bull worth over $50,000, and Royal Dynasty, whose bloodline traced back to legendary champions. By any objective measure, these were superior animals with advantages that Champion could never match. But as Judge Wells began her examination, something remarkable happened. When she approached Champion, the bull stood perfectly still, allowing her to assess his conformation with the calm dignity of an animal who knew his own worth. His muscle definition, enhanced by months of proper nutrition and exercise, impressed even the skeptics in the audience. "Excellent muscle tone," Judge Wells murmured to her assistant, running experienced hands along Champion's frame. "Outstanding temperament. Very nice presentation." The preliminary judging narrowed the field from 12 bulls to 6 finalists, and to the amazement of everyone present, Champion was among them. Danny caught sight of Brad Morrison's shocked expression and felt a surge of quiet satisfaction. In the final presentation, each bull was walked individually around the ring while the judges made their final assessments. When Danny's turn came, he and Champion moved together with a synchronization that spoke of genuine partnership rather than simple training. The bull's presence had become commanding, his bearing proud but not aggressive. Judge Wells called the handlers to line up their bulls for the final ranking. Danny positioned Champion in the center of the group, his heart pounding as the judge made her deliberations. "Ladies and gentlemen," the announcer's voice boomed across the exhibition grounds, "in third place we have Royal Dynasty from the Henderson Ranch." The crowd applauded politely as the bronze ribbon was awarded. Danny felt Champion shift slightly beside him, as if the bull understood that his moment was approaching. In second place, Thunderbolt Supreme from Morrison Cattle Company. Brad Morrison's face showed his disappointment as he accepted the red ribbon. 2 bulls remained, Champion and Lone Star Pride, a magnificent specimen from the prestigious Hartwell Ranch. "And your grand champion bull of the Lone Star exhibition," Judge Wells paused dramatically, "is Champion, owned by Danny Martinez of Millfield." The silence that followed lasted only a heartbeat before the crowd erupted. Some cheered in genuine celebration of an underdog victory, while others simply stared in disbelief. Danny felt his knees go weak as Judge Wells approached with the purple and gold championship ribbon. "Son," she said with a warm smile, "I've been judging cattle for 25 years and I've never seen a more remarkable transformation. This bull is a testament to what proper care and genuine love can accomplish." As photographers captured the moment and reporters crowded around for interviews, Danny looked down at Champion, who stood calmly amid the chaos, seemingly unsurprised by the validation of what he had always known about himself. The victory transformed more than just Danny's reputation. Word of Champion's triumph spread throughout the Texas cattle community, inspiring countless stories about the power of seeing potential where others saw only problems. The bull who had been destined for slaughter became a symbol of perseverance, proof that greatness could emerge from the most unlikely circumstances. Jorge Santos, whose early support had meant so much, found Danny after the ceremony. "You know what this means, don't you?" he said with tears in his eyes. "Every reject bull, every damaged animal, every forgotten creature is going to have people wondering what they might become with the right chance." 3 months later, Champion stood in his home pasture on the Martinez Ranch, his championship ribbon displayed proudly in the farm's front window. Visitors came regularly now, drawn by the story of the bull who had overcome neglect and rejection to achieve greatness. But perhaps the most meaningful recognition came from the community that had once mocked Danny's faith in his bull. The annual Millfield County Fair now featured the Champion Award for the livestock entry that best demonstrated the potential for transformation through dedicated care. Danny often reflected on the journey as he watched Champion graze peacefully in the Texas sunshine. The $300 he had spent at that auction hadn't just bought him a bull. It had purchased proof that believing in something, even when everyone else has given up, could literally change the world. This incredible true story reminds us that greatness often comes disguised as failure, and that sometimes the greatest champions are those who were once considered the greatest rejects. If this story of faith, perseverance, and the triumph of the underdog has inspired you, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories that prove anything is possible when we refuse to give up on potential.